Ladies and gentlemen, I request your attention for the recitation of Holy Quran, please.
In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful.
يؤتي الحكمة من يشاء ومن يؤت الحكمة فقد أوتي خيرا كثيرا وما يذكر إلا أولو الألباب.
He gives wisdom to whom He wills, and whoever has been given wisdom has certainly been given much good, and none will remember except those of understanding.
صدق الله العظيم.
Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now commence this seminar. I, Hansa Qureshi, on behalf of President Center for Aerospace and Security Studies, Air Marshal Farhat Hussain Khan and CAS team, welcome you all to today's CAS seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, CAS is an independent and non-partisan think tank that envisions to serve as a thought leader. Our mission is to provide independent insight and analysis on aerospace and international security issues. We shall now watch a brief introductory video which showcases the scope of Center's activities and a message from President CAS.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. CAS was established in 2019 to fill in the knowledge and research gaps that existed in the domains of aerospace and national security in an otherwise think tank-rich capital, Islamabad. To achieve our objective of being amongst the best think tanks of the region and with focused mission, CAS has made significant contributions by providing policy guidelines on important issues of national interest, especially security, both in military and non-military domains, disseminated through direct as well as indirect engagement on a regular basis. As part of the advisory board of the Government of Pakistan's National Security Division, CAS has and would continue to serve as a thought leader by providing independent, innovative, evidence-based solutions to strengthen Pakistan's national security, including specific emerging geostrategic and geo-economic situations. Maintaining a winning aerospace power requires high-end technologies that are not only cost-intensive, but their availability with the passage of time is likely to be challenging. In our region, these technologies are largely acquired. Therefore, working towards our vision of strengthening national security in all its domains through indigenization, CAS would continue to lay emphasis on innovative research on emerging technologies, including but not limited to cyber and space. We continue to enhance our reach through greater use of media, seminars, webinars, digital technologies, joint research, and cementing our relationship with domestic, regional, and global partners. Inshallah, in times ahead, we will continue to build upon our achievements.
Moving forward. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic of today's seminar is the role of new and emerging technologies in comprehensive national security. The technological breakthroughs harnessed by the fourth industrial revolution are centered on gathering, processing, and analyzing enormous amounts of data with impact on all aspects of modern life. The development, advancement, application, and proliferation of technologies such as Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, 5G, blockchain, etc., is creating increasingly connected societies, digitalized economies, near competition arenas, and shifts in power centers. To discuss the impact of these developments, CAS has today gathered together a core group of experts with extensive defense, academic, and technical experience at the intersection of advanced technologies and state and individual security. The discussion would shed light on the significance of new and emerging technologies and the importance of a roadmap for investing in and developing newer technologies to achieve comprehensive national security. Today's session will be moderated by Air Marshal Ashfaq Arain, who is Advisor to Chief of Air Staff, Pakistan Air Force on CAS Affairs. He is also currently serving as Director, Emerging Technologies and Global Conferences at CAS. For our keynote session today, we are honored to have Lieutenant General Khalid Kidwai. Lieutenant General Kidwai has led a meritorious military service spanning over 54 years, during which he held a variety of prestigious command and staff and instructional appointments. After the May 1998 nuclear tests, Lieutenant General Kidwai pioneered the establishment of Pakistan's National Command Authority and was appointed as the founding Director General of Strategic Plans Division in December 1998. He served as DG SPD for over 15 years, and since 2014, he is an advisor to National Command Authority. As DG SPD, he conceived, articulated, and executed Pakistan's nuclear policy and deterrence doctrines, and translated these doctrines into robust nuclear force structure, oversaw and ensured the establishment of the Army, Navy, and Air Force strategic force commands, including the development and operationalization of a variety of nuclear weapons. He put in place state-of-the-art command and control systems, as well as an effective nuclear security regime for Pakistan's strategic assets. He is also the architect of Pakistan's Civilian Nuclear Energy Vision 2050. Lieutenant General Kidwai has been awarded Pakistan's highest civil award, Nishan-e-Imtiaz, second highest civil award, Hilal-e-Imtiaz, in addition to Hilal-e-Imtiaz military. Our second speaker for today would be Dr. Rabia Akhtar. Dr. Akhtar is Director Center for Security, Strategy, and Policy Research. She is also the founding director of the School of Integrated Social Sciences at the University of Lahore. Dr. Akhtar holds a PhD in Security Studies from Kansas State University. She has written extensively on South Asian nuclear security and deterrence dynamics. She is the author of the book titled The Blind Eye, U.S. Non-Proliferation Policy Towards Pakistan, from Ford to Clinton. Dr. Akhtar is also the editor of Pakistan Politico, which is Pakistan's first strategic and foreign affairs magazine. She is non-resident senior fellow at South Asia Center, Atlantic Council, Washington, D.C. Our next speaker would be Ms. Aamna Rafiq. Mr. Rafiq is a research associate at Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad's Arms Control and Disarmament Center. Previously, she has worked with Arms Control and Disarmament Affairs Branch of the SPD and Pakistan Institute for Parliamentary Services, Islamabad. As a young parliamentary subject expert, she has assisted Senate's Standing Committee on Defense Production. She has also represented ISSI at various prestigious national and international forums such as United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research, Sri Lankan Army, King's College London, Air University Islamabad, among many others. Her research focuses on the security issues related to civil and military applications of emerging technologies and establishment of a global regulatory regime. Mr. Rafiq holds an MPhil degree in International Relations from Quaid-e-Azam University. Our next panelist would be Dr. Syed Arif Ahmad. Dr. Ahmad would share his insights on prudent harnessing of technological development to support comprehensive security options for Pakistan. Dr. Syed Arif Ahmad holds a PhD degree from California, USA. He has 20 years of teaching experience in various universities, including Pias, NUST, Air, and University of California. His expertise include nuclear system design, NBC warfare, nuclear safety and security, energy and computational methods. He has served for 42 years in Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission in different appointments, including advisor PAEC. He has numerous publications to his name and has been member editorial board of PAEC journal Nucleus. Moving forward, Air Commodore Khalid Banuri today would be joining us as a worthy discussant on the subject. Air Commodore Banuri is a practitioner and a scholar with diverse interests and experience spread over 44 years in public service in 4 broad realms: aviation, training, education, and outreach. He commenced his career as a fighter pilot and a flight instructor from Pakistan Air Force, rising to the rank of Air Commodore. He's a graduate of F-16 Squadron of Combat Commanders Course, Flying Instructor School, Air War College, and UK's Joint Services Command and Staff College. He was the first Director General ACTA at the SPD and advisor on arm control and diplomacy, wherein he contributed to policy making in nuclear, missile, space, chemical, and biological control, strategic export controls, South Asian security, and international law. Along with partaking in Pakistan's official delegations for bilateral dialogues with countries of Pakistan's interests, he has also represented Pakistan in multilateral forums. With postgraduate qualifications from 3 Pakistani and 2 British universities in security, strategic defense, international law, and war studies, he has taught at 3 public sector universities in Pakistan. He's also a member, Expert Oversight Board for Strategic Controls, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of Pakistan, Advisor Training Project Phoenix, Pakistan Air Force, Member Administrative Advisory Board, Pakistan Nuclear Society, and Member Board of Advisors Arms Control and Disarmament Center, Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. These are our speakers for today's discussion. I would now request Air Marshal Ashfaq Arain to take over as the moderator for today.
Khansa, thank you very much. Honorable speakers, respected ladies and gentlemen, I, on behalf of President CAS, Air Marshal Faraz Hussain Khan, and Team CAS, once again welcome you all for this very important seminar titled Role of New and Emerging Technologies in Comprehensive National Security. Ladies and gentlemen, the concept of national security has undergone a major shift from military security of the state against external threats, usually called traditional security, to comprehensive national security. The change has primarily been brought about with globalization of the world. The new concept requires an inclusive framework encompassing all internal and external factors of the state as well as of the society. This framework contributes to the protection of not only national security, but also various dimensions of human security, often referred to as non-traditional security. Pakistan's first formally declared national security policy, premised on the concept of comprehensive national security, also recognizes the connectivity between traditional and non-traditional elements of national security, and proposes a whole-of-nation approach towards charting a cohesive, unified, and responsive security policy for the future. New technologies have always been a central agent for change, affecting the lives of individuals, groups, societies, nations, and the world as a whole. The latest technological breakthroughs are disruptive in nature as they are bringing about transformative shifts in diverse fields. These are not only fostering greater interconnectivity, but also exerting significant impact on economies and power structures, leading to a shift in global power centers. At the same time, these technologies can be misused by state and non-state actors alike. Violation of basic human rights, such as privacy of citizens through increased surveillance by the states, is just one example. The impact, therefore, necessitates approaching both human security as well as state security in a different and futuristic manner. In this backdrop, this seminar aims at examining the formulation of policies and implementation strategies for investing in the development of newer technologies to achieve Pakistan's comprehensive national security goals. We are honored to have with us esteemed panelists who hold extensive experience in defense, technical, commercial arena, as well as the academia. They will help in reviewing the intersection of advanced technologies with the state and individual security. I would also like to mention that since the comprehensive national security adopts whole of the national approach, we have endeavored to balance gender representation in today's panel. Ladies and gentlemen, to understand the blend of new and emerging technologies with comprehensive national security, we have with us Lieutenant General Khalid Ahmad Kidwai as the keynote speaker. He would discuss the changing dynamics of traditional and non-traditional security, challenges posed by new and emerging technologies to traditional and non-traditional security, what opportunities do such technologies offer in the domains of the traditional and non-traditional security to augment comprehensive security, and what challenges do such technologies pose, especially to international treaties, conventions, and legal aspects. General Kidwai, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Air Marshal Farhat Hussain Khan, Air Marshal Ashfaq Anain, distinguished speakers of the seminar, ladies and gentlemen. It's a matter of great honor for me to have been asked to deliver this keynote address at today's seminar at the Center for Aerospace and Security Studies, CASS. Personally, I've been following quite closely the high quality academic and intellectual work which has been undertaken at the CASS ever since its inception a few years ago. I'm really happy to say that the research work, publications, and outreach undertaken at CAS is way up among the best in Pakistan, and that too in so short a time. And frankly, I'm not surprised given that top quality professionals like Air Marshal Farhat and Air Marshal Ashfaq and their team members have been entrusted by the Pakistan Air Force with this intellectual responsibility. I've had the privilege of working closely with both the senior officers during our respective times at the SPD and the Air Force Strategic Command, respectively. You can't find more dedicated and intellectually gifted professionals than the two air officers. They've made huge contributions during their tenure at the AFSC, and I think they make a great team here at the CASS. The topic for today's seminar has indeed been well chosen. The role of new and emerging technologies in comprehensive national security is a subject that is important, but is also at the same time both current and futuristic, as in not too distant a future. These have been around for quite some time now and is relevant and vital, particularly to security environments of countries like Pakistan, which are located in international crush zones and have to bear the brunt of the cross currents of international geopolitical power play as these play out in our region, even as I speak. In addition to the interplay of the cross currents of international geopolitical power play, Pakistan continues to additionally bear the consequences of the unfinished agenda of the partition of India, with a raging, unresolved conflict over Kashmir with its eastern neighbor. Therefore, for Pakistan, its national security dynamics or comprehensive national security dynamics translate into a variety of threat scenarios ranging from the good old-fashioned contact warfare to non-contact warfare, and the evolving notions of national security ranging from the traditional to the non-traditional, all of which must be taken into account by Pakistan's national and strategic planners. In this complex mix, we can now add the emergence of exotic and new technologies as these evolve and unfold year after year, not only globally, but more importantly from Pakistan's perspective in the region of South Asia. Some of you would recall that CAS had organized a seminar last year in October on militarization of emerging technologies, implications on strategic stability in South Asia. And they had been good enough to give me the honor to deliver a keynote then too. That seminar and today's seminar have one thing in common, that is the study of the effects that are being generated by the new and emerging technologies in different domains and from different perspectives. The difference to my mind is the focus on the prism through which two different aspects of these emerging technologies are being looked at. In October last year, it was the effects or implications of emerging technologies on strategic stability in South Asia. And today, it is the role or blend of emerging technologies with comprehensive national security. Therefore, as a recap, before proceeding further, I would like to quote very briefly from my October keynote in order to illustrate a certain connectivity between the prisms of these two seminars. I had said then, and I quote, I would like to start by taking a somewhat philosophical and historical view of the term emerging technologies. The term emerging technologies in recent years has managed to catch the imagination and attention of today's military professionals as something of a new and exotic term of our times. Perhaps because exotic technologies like robotics, artificial intelligence, directed energy weapons, hypersonic weapons, cyber warfare, space capabilities, drones, etc., conjure a vision of a Star Wars-like intergalactic warfare from faraway distances, wherein a faceless adversary can neither be seen nor pinpointed for possible retribution and retaliation. A video game-like environment where an anonymous individual sitting in Florida playing on his video screen can blow up with mind-boggling precision Ayman al-Zawahiri in the balcony of a Kabul apartment. Or a faceless cyberspace hacking operation which can switch off the electricity grid of a megacity, plunging life into chaos and inflicting massive financial losses. The effects generated through some of these technologies include shock and awe, surprise and destruction far in excess of conventional technology as we know them, force multipliers in many ways, warfare without a name tag. We seem to have latched on to this coinage of emerging technologies with much enthusiasm, awe, and novelty, as if the development and emergence of technologies before our current era had come to a stop, and that it is only of late that technologies have made a breakthrough and started to emerge or re-emerge from hibernation. Now, philosophically speaking, if we look at technologies in a historical perspective, I would like to submit that for ages past, and for that matter for centuries past, technologies and technological developments in any given era were always dynamic, progressive, and generated profound strategic effects on the strategic stability-instability paradigm in that particular era, time, place, and region. Of course, with each passing decade or a couple of decades or a century, the complexity and lethality of technologies certainly became more and more challenging in each era than in the eras past. But because science and technology are by their very nature progressive, innovative, and a marvel, new technologies did not really stop emerging, ever. Technologies remain in an unstoppable race to ever-expanding frontiers of excellence, innovation, capabilities, and mysteries. It is impossible to tell where and when these would stop, if ever, unquote. Now, that was in the context of militarization of emerging technologies and the implication for strategic stability in South Asia. Today, in this seminar, that canvas has been greatly broadened by the sponsors, and rightly so, to discuss and debate the role of new and emerging technologies at the level of what is being referred to as comprehensive national security. It is important not only to debate and be clear as to what we think comprehensive national security is or ought to be in the security environments of today and tomorrow, but also the role that emerging technologies are likely to play in this wider notion of comprehensive national security. Also, it is not possible to project as to what might be the futuristic reliability and the shelf life of the invention of a particular new technology or innovation as we know these today. How long will the strategic effects of a certain technology prevail or last? as a dominant marvel of science and engineering, creating tactical and strategic imbalances in the process before an antidote in due course of time is discovered or invented and the effects either neutralized or an effective strategic balance of sorts restored. It may not be a bad guess to predict that the time frame will probably be measured in terms of a couple of decades for a technology to mature, be absorbed by the users in a meaningful way, and become familiarized to play a variety of roles in comprehensive national security of a nation. In the concept note of today's seminar, CAS has defined comprehensive national security quite accurately as a state of preparedness for the threats and risks to vital functions of society. It recognizes the inherent connectivity between traditional and non-traditional elements of national security and proposes a whole-of-nation approach towards charting a cohesive, unified, and responsive security policy for the future. In addition to generally agreeing with the definition by CAS, I would like to add, or at least make it clear, what ought to be obvious, that while defining the notion of comprehensive national security of a nation, the fundamental and basic values of three factors: political stability with peace within and peace without, a sound and robust economy, and social cohesion between various segments and communities within a society will just have to be considered sine qua non or indispensable prerequisites for a nation to feel comprehensively secure. Without ensuring that these three prerequisites, which I'll repeat for emphasis, political stability with peace within and peace without, sound and robust economy, and social cohesion, are deeply embedded in the life of a nation, the mere possession of some of the fancy state-of-the-art emerging technologies are not likely to go very far in playing a worthwhile role in the provision of comprehensive national security. If this be true, we may like to make an objective internal assessment of the situation around us so as to gauge what might be amiss in our comprehensive national security environments today. Here I would like to say a few words about the changing dynamics of traditional and non-traditional security. Now, we in the military are largely trained to think and make our threat assessments and response options in a bit of a straitjacket. From the early days in our respective training academies to the higher courses at staff and war colleges, in each service, there's a straightforward template of military methodology at each incremental level, which trains our minds to arrive logically at feasible military response options to various threat scenarios. The probability and likelihood of some of those scenarios unfolding in a certain order of priority, whether on land, air, or at sea, with jointness built into plans at a higher level. By and large, following the military methodology template invariably leads one to workable response options and plans which can then be executed as per the unfolding of a particular operational environment or a hypothesis, including variants of all shades. Now, all this is very fine as long as the threat is in the domain of brute force of conventional forces of the adversary being physically pitched against the brute force of our own forces. This is warfare at its oldest and crudest, threatening the security of nations in a very traditional form of unleashing violence in pursuit of national policies. From North America to Europe, from Asia to the Pacific, world armies know how to do it, world air forces know how to do it, and the world navies know how to do it. As military professionals, we are past masters at the job. But consider now that the arrival of a variety of emerging technologies of our times that widen the canvas of non-traditional response options or even non-traditional options for initiating operations in a non-traditional manner. Such capabilities will now have to be incorporated and integrated into national security plans in a manner that might be novel and innovative, not necessarily relying on violence as the preferred option, and allowing considerable flexibility of deniability. Such possibilities are today being enabled by various forms of artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, robotics, information wars, and what have you. In the current war in Ukraine, for example, one can find a subtle combination of traditional and non-traditional means at play. Sometime back in the war in Azerbaijan, one learned about the overwhelming role and employment of drones in quite a non-traditional manner. As someone who learned on job how to develop, operationalize and manage Pakistan's substantial nuclear inventory to serve the purposes of national security, as a very basic example, what readily comes to my mind in the context of South Asia is the game-changing role that the development and operational induction of nuclear weapons has played in South Asia. Nuclear weapons, which even though continue to improve qualitatively all the time, are nevertheless based on a technology that emerged a long time ago, and perhaps strictly speaking may not find its place in the current definitions of the term emerging technology. Nevertheless, it is a technology of its time, and the mere possession of a triad of operationalized nuclear weapons by both Pakistan and India has seemingly outlawed major wars in South Asia. Strategic deterrence is in place, and it apparently works. It has controlled a rush of blood on both sides in a number of otherwise haywire situations. Having said that, however, what the deterrence effects of nuclear technology have been able to achieve in South Asia is that having helped in outlawing major wars, these have nevertheless created what I might call a strategic deflection effect towards the strategies of lesser wars by other means, meaning other than the means of regulation conventional forces. They have pushed war towards non-traditional, non-contact means defined by various shades of hybrid war, including low-intensity conflicts, opening of a variety of inner fronts, intense information war, perhaps water wars in the future, anonymous cyber attacks on critical facilities, even aggressive diplomatic and economic policies in Pakistan's traditional areas of influence. Consequently, one might ask, what has been at the receiving end? At the receiving end, the answer is Pakistan's national security, comprehensive national security. Sooner rather than later, some of the new and emerging technologies mentioned earlier, which are currently going around in the world, are bound to find their way in one shape or another in the inventories of South Asia too. These will invariably have dual use, or perhaps more accurately quadruple use: civil, military, positive, and negative. As such, one should expect that these technologies will have a positive role to play in providing and reinforcing comprehensive national security in non-traditional areas of nation building, in boosting economic growth through a vast variety of civil applications in a large number of trade and economic sectors like finance and banking, stock markets, construction industry, in the energy sector, in the agricultural sector, in information technology, in improving and reforming the health and education sectors, in enhancing communications and providing super-fast transportation options for both cargo and human travel. But then the emerging technologies will invariably also carry the potential to enhance military capabilities in the traditional, conventional, as well as non-conventional strategic forces. What will follow, therefore, will be the placement at the doorsteps of military and strategic decision makers more innovative and exotic means of pursuing and influencing outcomes in support of a nation's foreign policy goals and objectives. And that too perhaps through an entirely non-violent and surreptitious means with plausible deniability as the benchmarks. Following from the foregoing, therefore, I would like here to inject a sense of urgency, a polite, respectful word of caution, advice, early warning, call it what you will, to Pakistan's decision makers in the civil, public and private sectors and in the military sector that this is the future. Emerging technologies are here and here to stay, elsewhere in the advanced countries, including China. It's only a matter of time, not too far away in the future, that these applications will surely be inducted in South Asia as well, in the civil, public and private sectors for economic benefits, and in the relevant military sector in our neighbors' conventional and strategic inventories. Therefore, the time for Pakistan to get its act together is now. First, in enhancing our learning and understanding of these technologies at the technical level, applications level, and at the operational level, and then moving rapidly in laying out comprehensive national plans for the induction and application in the relevant areas of national life in both civil, public, and private sectors and the military sector. That, to my mind, will perhaps be what the sponsors have called a whole-of-nation approach. If Pakistan does not dive into this critical area without loss of time now, it will struggle in the future when it might belatedly discover the negative effects of time and technology lapses and try and play catch up. It might be too late by then. The technology gap with the adversary might have widened beyond local repair. And mind you, for Pakistan, with our rich and historic experiences of living with denials, sanctions, and embargoes, it is not beyond the realm of possibility that the doors and windows to these technologies will start to dry up with time. We in the armed forces and at the SPD are quite familiar with the consequences of such denials, sanctions, and embargoes. Therefore, the time to act is now, while the doors are still open. Pakistan has the advantage of a proven and reliable strategic partnership going for it, which has stood the test of times at all times in the past. It needs to be tapped urgently in the interest of enhancing and securing Pakistan's comprehensive national security, which must include the civil, public, and private sectors, as well as the military sector. Failure to do so would be a dereliction of responsibility. The enormous loss would be of Pakistan in general, with serious negative effects on our comprehensive national security. As of today, and for the foreseeable future, to the best of my knowledge, the development and induction of new and emerging technologies are not particularly governed by any specific international treaties or conventions. In fact, there appears to be considerable lack of clarity and confusion on trade, liability, and export control. History nevertheless indicates that at some point in time, when a certain technology, like for example, nuclear and missile technology, chemical or biological technology, even some dreadful conventional weapons technology, begins to cross certain thresholds of excessive proliferation or ethical barriers, or some advanced countries consider locking in their technological advantages, countries do come together to negotiate and agree on certain minimum do's and don'ts with much give and take, and finally translate into treaties and conventions. History also shows that such initiatives and negotiations can take a long time in terms of decades, with diplomats and technocrats leveraging for advantage while working on texts. As of now, even though there's much chatter, I'm not aware of any international or regional initiative in such a direction. Perhaps it will happen at some time in the future. Therefore, once again, as I end, I would emphasize on Pakistan's national leadership to make the most of this diplomatic vacuum and focus our national technology plans on familiarization, development, induction, and indigenization of emerging technologies in the relevant areas of civil and military applications to serve the purposes of comprehensive national security. An appropriately focused national task force with clearly defined lead agency, mandate, objectives, and reasonable resources at its disposal could be a good start point. I take great pleasure in congratulating the visionary leadership at CAS for focusing national attention on this important subject with seminars, not once, but twice within a few months. My hope will be that having taken the initiative and lead in this important direction, CAS must continue to follow up and relentlessly pester Pakistan's planners and informed scientific and strategic community till the penny drops. A momentum is built and the fruits of your efforts spread widely to benefit Pakistan. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
So thank you. And General Kidwai very rightly pointed out that political stability with peace within and without, robust economy, and cohesion in the society, they are the basic ingredients to have comprehensive national security, whether you have technology or you don't have that. Our next speaker is Professor Dr. Rabia Akhtar. I'm thankful to Dr. Akhtar, who was traveling abroad and still gathered the strength to come to Islamabad all the way, while she had a choice of being online. She will be discussing impact of new and emerging technologies on traditional security. With the latest technologies increasingly becoming a source of economic strength and military power, she'll shed light on how these developments would impact any state's existing traditional security structures, influence a shift in balance of power, and their likely impact on the character of future warfare. Dr. Rabia. Khamsa?
Lights थोड़ी सी कम होंगी. I think this is the...
No, you have a choice.
I already did. Yeah. थोड़ी सी lights कम हो सकती हैं. Air Marshal Farhat Hussain, President Cass, Air Marshal Ashfaq Karain, General Kidwai, my fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. It's a great pleasure for me to be here, and I would, at the outset, would have this disclaimer out there that I am not an expert on this. And I consider myself a student who is learning about emerging technologies and the kind of impact they can have on policy choices that Pakistan is going to make when countries, are already way ahead the curve, and Pakistan is still, in its nascent stage. I will start by making some comments in relating back to what country statement that was made by General Sahir Shamshad Mirza at the 20th Asia Security Summit at the Shangri-La Dialogue. And if you were following, it was an excellent speech. He said, and I quote, an exponential increase in emerging and disruptive technologies has the potential to substantially alter the geostrategic landscape, and with no agreed rules of the game in this domain, it is likely to have a disproportionate effect on the region and beyond, our region and beyond. Unless a comprehensive legal regulatory regime is developed, the proliferation of emerging and disruptive technologies could increase the nuclear risk. In outlining the strategic developments in South Asia, he talked about 6 implications for strategic stability in our region, one of which was related to the growing pressure from technological competition combined with decoupling in emerging technology sectors, which poses increasing security risks. So this was his speech, and he made a comment about emerging technologies, relating it to strategic stability in our region. So all of you who follow the subject and are interested in this, there is nothing that I'm going to say today which will be new to you. But I hope that as we go along and, through the seminar, there is much thought-provoking done here, which will allow us as scholars, experts, and academics to engage with this subject as this subject continues to evolve. The impact of emerging technologies in just these 3 domains alone, there is a very large domain out there, but I'm just focusing on these 3, cyber warfare, AI-powered weapons, and bioengineering. These are some areas of research where Pakistani scholars and experts need to expand their expertise. Cyber warfare, state-sponsored hackers can launch attacks on critical infrastructures, causing widespread damage and disruption. So if this happens in Pakistan, what is the playbook that we have? There is very little information that is available out in the public domain, even to academics like me and many who are doing their MPhil in this area, or PhDs who can reach out to outfits that actually are running contingencies for this. So I think there is a disconnect between what the state is doing and the information that trickles down to regular people like myself. So I think there needs to be some synergy that needs to be developed there.
AI-powered weapons, military drones, and autonomous weapon systems. You all must have heard about them. They can be programmed to make their own decisions, bypassing human oversight, and that is a huge area. And coupled with this is the area of ethical issues related to autonomous weapons and their role in warfare. Bioengineering is another area where new technologies are allowing for creation of bioweapons that could target specific populations and individuals. Our collective experience of COVID, sort of tells us that this is one domain going forward, probably will allow countries to have these bioweapons, and through spread of diseases and all, we probably might not have to even resort to traditional weapons to fight future wars, because we have seen as to how the virus crippled global economy and has disrupted supply chains. And with that learning, I think countries that want to invest in this heavily are definitely going to have an edge. So at least studies need to happen. We all have been looking at 3D printing and as to how it has revolutionized manufacturing. 3D printing also allows anyone to produce advanced weaponry as well as equipment, obviously very resource and money intensive, but it is out there. I've already talked about autonomous systems, which include self-driving cars and drones, and they can be hacked and they can be turned into weapons or cause accidental collisions. Then there's quantum computing. Computers that use quantum mechanics, they can easily break existing encryption methods and steal sensitive data. I know the PALs on the nuclear weapons, are very sensitive information. But as hackers also advance in gaining this skill set through quantum computing, that is something that the states are also worrying about. Surveillance and espionage. So with my apologies to Aamna, who's going to talk about non-traditional security threats, I do believe, since General Kidwai mentioned social cohesion, social engineering obviously is a very big part of this whole debate with emerging technologies. And I do believe that surveillance and espionage through emerging technologies, by collecting large-scale collection of data, your data, my data, and analysis of personal and national data for intelligence gathering purposes is detrimental to Pakistan's national security. And it can, it's harmful for other broader activities as well. Social engineering, I briefly talked about. New technologies like cryptocurrencies and blockchain are making it easier for fraud and organized crime to operate on larger and more sophisticated scale. And, if you are a hacker or if you are a terrorist and you realize that nothing can be traced back to you because the data is unbreakable and it is so securely encrypted through blockchain, then probably that can enhance, the confidence of the terrorist organizations, and they can find novel ways of moving ahead with their objectives against the state. So that, again, stands at the borderline between traditional and non-traditional security threats. Genetic engineering is something which really is fascinating. Gene editing, there are technologies out there like CRISPR. They eliminate the limitations of traditional gene therapy, and they allow for precision-guided gene slicing. And new genetic engineering techniques provide the means to selectively modify the pathogen virulence, which poses a grave threat to public health and national security. So this, again, I believe is borderline, crosses both traditional and non-traditional domains. AI and machine learning, there's a lot of talk about it. Intelligent automation, AI systems can process vast amounts of data in real time, and they make it easier for nations to filter out the noise from the intelligence. I don't know how far along Pakistan is in this domain, but I do believe that we are well on their way, or at least I hope so we are. AI and machine learning can also provide decision-making support to policymakers. It has the potential to make operations more efficient, but it obviously does come with its ethical and political complications. Machine learning is something that I think we need to invest heavily on because it can improve predictive capability and increase the effectiveness of our counterterrorism operations. Automation of knowledge work with both AI and machine learning. We are moving at fast speed and improving everything from military strategy to logistics to supply chain optimization. Obviously, there are offensive emerging technologies in the defense sector, cyber weapons, hypersonic weapons, directed energy weapons, autonomous weapons, and nanotechnology. And all of this combined together, and these are just some of it. This is not a whole laundry list of emerging technologies that have disruptive effects for the defense sector. And those who look closely at it need to look at when states are developing these technologies, they are developing obviously to secure themselves, but when they secure themselves, it has a disruptive effect on their adversaries. So as these technologies are emerging, I do believe that their counter is also going to come out there as well. If these technologies do come in place, then what are some of the potential consequences? As General Kidwai mentioned, and I completely agree, that unless a country like Pakistan has political stability, has the economic spine to invest in the R&D that requires Pakistan to gain an edge in this sector, and has social cohesion, it cannot rise up to a level to deal with the potential consequences of emerging technologies. Economic damage, if we are hit by the disruptive effects, and there is a targeted strategy through which Pakistan is, at the receiving end of the disruptiveness of these technologies, it can create huge economic damage, and that can lead to financial losses and businesses, not only of private sector, but of government as well, and can further exacerbate our economic instability. It can also lead to a loss of life. Autonomous weapons and bioweapons can cause massive casualties. So that is another area. And largely, if we zoom out from our region, we look at the globe, as countries are racing towards developing all of this, global instability is just only going to further increase. So that is something that at the global level, we need to work and combat. I think there is a huge uncertainty because there is less data available as to how countries are developing these technologies that have these disruptive effects. And predicting future, again, referring back to what General Kidwai said, predicting future as to how disruptive can they get is something in itself a huge challenge, uncertainty that surrounds them. Then there is the regulation part of it. The Cold War era saw arms control architecture in the golden days of it because there was parity that was reached. And both Soviet Union and United States realized that after achieving that strategic parity and conventional force parity, they needed to move towards an arms control infrastructure. This whole field of emerging technology is still very nascent in its very, initial stages, that we are still far from seeing an international regulatory framework. And unless and until I think they'll be used at a global scale level, we are not going to see countries come together and talk about regulatory frameworks because those who actually do take lead are still not there yet. That's another area which is challenging. Then there are the costs for countries like Pakistan who are struggling economies. The cost of defending yourself against these emerging technologies and their disruptive effect is huge. So how do you find the necessary resources to be directed towards that when your resource pie is already constrained and has other priorities? So I don't know at what priority level does this stand right now with the government, but I hope that it is in the top 5. Then there is the privacy challenge. New technologies are violating the privacy of the citizens, and they are moving towards, increasing loss of civil liberties. Some of the threats, this is a very short list, and just to provoke thought and conversation amongst us, what are some of the threats to security for Pakistan? I think in the defense domain, these technologies can pose a significant threat to Pakistan. Cyber effect of critical infrastructure such as power grids and our communication networks are vulnerable, and they can disrupt essential services, and they can further cause economic damage. In another area, the use of autonomous weapons can make it difficult to attribute responsibility for attacks and can lead to unintended escalation as well. Development of hypersonic weapons and as well as other missile systems can pose threat to regional security and stability. So that's also another challenge. And another area is the use of emerging technologies such as AI, quantum computing, biotech, pose significant security challenges for countries like Pakistan. They can be used to develop new military capabilities which are beyond just weapons systems and to enhance the existing ones. And I believe that Pakistan will be struggling to keep up if it needs to, find a way to defend itself against them. Some of the strategies for strengthening national security. Again, as rightly pointed out by General Kidwai, there needs to be a massive investment in research, but that also requires capital. That needs money. You need to develop new technologies to understand their potential. Then you need to take massive cybersecurity measures to protect your critical infrastructure and data from cyber attacks. International cooperation, you need to work at a multilateral forum to work with other countries to enhance international cooperation. And Pakistan, I think, can still take lead in establishing international norms and rules, because we will be at the receiving end, just like we are at the receiving tail end of the strategic chain when the global power competition between US and China is pressuring India to modernize, and India says that its modernization is directed towards China. Pakistan is at the tail end of that strategic chain, absorbing the entire pressure, second order effects of the global power competition. So if we want to research in this area, I think this is one place where Pakistan can still take the lead and start making noise about establishing norms and rules, because we, again, unfortunately, are at the tail end of, receiving the shocks as our adversary continues to modernize. Education and awareness, I believe, coming from academia, I still do believe that there is a disconnect, again, between the state and the citizen at various levels. There's a lot of good stuff that is happening with respect to technology and emerging technology and challenges, how Pakistan is going to absorb it, but none of that is trickling down to a regular citizen. There is very less education and awareness, courses, seminars, or degree programs even, developing a human resource which can in years to come deal with the challenges that I've just listed. So I think there is a lot of work that needs to be done in that area. Some of the cooperative arrangements Pakistan can become a part of, obviously engage with other countries and build trust and reduce tensions and talk about the disruptive effects, which is going to be collective, not only individual. Become part of international agreements, or even take lead, be proactive in establishing rules and norms and generating blueprints of what a regulatory framework for disruptive technology could look like. United Nations, again, can play a major role. Some of the strategies for managing disruptive technologies in the defense sector, as I mentioned, is international cooperation. Is there space to explore such conversation with China and India for Pakistan? That's something I leave out there. Regulation and oversight, I've talked about. Investment in research and development, where's the money going to come from? Private sector in Pakistan has a lot of money. It just needs to develop synergies with the public sector and bypass the red tapeism and the bureaucracy that stops the private sector from coming into the defense industry and providing challenges. So the money is out there, the synergy needs to be created, and all of them, need to work together so that Pakistan can have solutions. There is a lot of headway made in the world where private and public work together. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, that's not the case. Again, I've talked about international law and regulatory framework. Be proactive. Use these forums to generate noise and take lead in establishing norms and rules and regulations. And transparency and dialogues, because as we move forward, because there is a lot of uncertainty that is around as to how these technologies are going to evolve, there is going to be a huge asymmetry, just like conventional asymmetry, just like nuclear asymmetry. There is going to be an asymmetry that's going to hit us. And if we are not talking to people or even our adversaries or like-minded countries in our region as to how these can, affect our broader strategic stability, then we will be at loss. So probably while CAS is holding the seminar at a local level, can expand it to the regional level as well and invite scholars and academics and policymakers from other countries. Take it to the next level where when we talk about strategic stability, we can't just talk about strategic stability standing here in this room, because it is a much broader concept. There are a lot of stakeholders out there. So bring stakeholders together and talk about these issues. And lastly, just to sum it up, of course, they pose a very serious threat to national security of Pakistan, from AI-powered weapons to bioweapons, hugely disruptive consequences. Cooperative approaches are vital for mitigating the risks. There needs to be an initiative and innovation coming from Pakistan, bringing both public and private sector. There needs to be strong data governance. We as citizens need to know whether our data is protected, and again, as to how private sector can help public sector get better at facing that challenge. And lastly, education and training. So if you have not already gone through it, in 2011, Pentagon released a manual which was called Zombie Apocalypse. And we all have seen zombie movies, and we all think that that is fiction. But if they have a manual, we can trust that the dead will be brought back to life at some point in time. And guess who will have the manual to deal with it? The United States of America. The point I want to make here is that US, of all the countries, has invited younger people who have wild imagination to come and write science fiction for them. And based on those science fiction, based on those wild scenarios that you cannot even imagine, and today you would hear them and you would say, what rubbish this is. They are going to build strategies based on those. And probably, who knows, make it a reality for the rest of the world, because they are far ahead in thinking out of the box. Here, we do not do scenario building. We do not encourage people thinking out of the box. We are pretty cozy with the status quo, with the boundaries of the box that we live in. I do believe that, as a society, we need to encourage more out-of-the-box thinking. We need to encourage scenarios that are outlandish and out there, and government needs to utilize the potential of the youth, which is wasted on Twitter these days. Thank you so much, and I look forward to engaging with you in the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rabia. Rightly pointed out that the civil sector has a lot of financing available to invest in the emerging technologies. And if invested rightly, it will help improve our almost every aspect of life in Pakistan, including the security. But unfortunately, it is mostly the security sector which imposes bans on developments or investments. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Ms. Aamna Rafiq, who will discuss using new and emerging technologies for enhancing non-traditional security and national development with emphasis on useful employment of emerging technologies for development and improving non-traditional security, how to avoid adverse impact of technology on culture, social fabric, and national cohesion, and how can technologically dependent and financially constrained states benefit from the latest technologies. Ms. Aamna Rafiq.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. Let me begin by extending my gratitude to the Air Marshal Farhat Khan and Air Marshal Ashfaq Arain for this initiative. And I also want to express my gratitude as well as appreciation for the remarks given by Lieutenant General Khalid Kidwai and Dr. Rabia. And I look forward to listen to the Dr. Arif and Sir Khalid Banuri. So as you can see on the screen that my topic is using new and emerging technologies for enhancing non-traditional security and national development. Let me start by taking you down the memory lane. In early 1960s, when US was working on its Apollo 11 moon mission, many people across the globe asked the US this question, that why moon? John F. Kennedy, then president of the US, gave answer in one of his speeches. He said, and I quote, "We choose to go to moon and do other things in this decade, not because they are easy, but because they are hard," unquote. So this statement made me think that technologies kept on achieving hard things, but they remained unsuccessful in achieving small things on this planet, like poverty eradication, clean water for all, and zero hunger. And here we are today after more than 5 decades of this moon landing and talking about achieving these small things through emerging and new technologies, which old technologies couldn't deliver for us. So to better understand this, it is important to know why certain technologies would lose their spark and would become an old technology, and what makes a technology an emerging technology and a new technology. So I will cover this part. I will cover this in the first part of my presentation. In the second section, I will discuss about enhancing the non-traditional security and national development through these technologies by using the SDG framework. And then I will conclude this presentation by highlighting the challenges for developing states in this domain. So in this era of technological innovation, wide ranges of unique technologies are being introduced every day, but does every one of them could be termed as an emerging technology? Definitely not. So therefore, it is imperative to clearly understand this term. What are some defining characteristics a technology must possess in order to qualify as an emerging technology? So emerging technologies are defined as the rapidly developing, coherent and novel technologies with the ability to produce prominent effects in various sectors. These technologies not only have the potential to alter the institutional frameworks and set of stakeholders, but also the nature of interaction among them. The true potential of their impact remain ambiguous due to their manifestation in the near future, as already highlighted by 2 of our speakers. So keeping in mind the uniqueness of the emerging technologies, it should not be confused or interchangeably used with the term new technologies. Although there are certain commonalities between the two, yet they are fundamentally 2 different concepts. New technologies are highly coherent and mature technology with visibly prominent impacts in the present time. The main characteristic that differentiate a new technology from an emerging technology is the manifestation of its impact in the present time. So on the screen, you can see some of the examples of the emerging and new technologies. Let me make this clear that this placement of the emerging technologies placement is quite fluid. It's not rigid, so it depends on the time and the country, as well as a person who is looking at these technologies. Like back in 2018-19, cyber, ICT were placed in the category of the emerging technologies, but now I believe that they are now moved in the category of the new technologies, because now we are seeing their impact in the present time. So emerging technologies, as already being said, that impact almost all major aspects of the non-traditional security and national development. So I would use the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, and 169 target internationally agreed in 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development as a framework to discuss these impacts. So as a part of the Frontier 2030 Fourth Industrial Revolution for Global Goals platform, the World Economic Forum in its report analyzed the role of more than 300 emerging technology applications for SDGs. Emerging technologies would produce a high impact across 10 out of 16 SDGs. Big data support for SDG progression is 100%. Artificial intelligence is significant for more than 50% of the SDG applications. Role of blockchain and Internet of Things is 25% and 33% respectively. Advanced materials contribution is predicted to be 10%. So overall, the innovation in the realm of emerging technologies can directly support 70% of 169 targets of SDG. This is relatively a larger picture. So let's dive deep into how it would happen on the individual for individual SDGs. So the first cluster is the social and the cultural cluster. It includes SDG 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, and 16. So access to the digital financial services and the social media is overall lifting people out of the poverty, providing access to the market and customers, along with the resources for startups. AI can help to identify areas of poverty and foster international action using satellite images. On the other hand, it may also lead to the additional qualification requirements for any job, consequently increasing the inequalities. By making agriculture practices more data-driven and efficient, AI and ICT-enabled solutions can help farmers increase crop yields, reduce use of energy, good quality of seeds and fertilizers, more accurate weather prediction, disaster predictions, and drone technology for covering bigger fields. In the field of the medicine, direct patient interaction and the health informatics can be improved through these technology. As highlighted by Dr. Rabia earlier, that ICT could promote connectivity and automation in schools and university as well. So as we were talking about the gender balance today, it is also a really important aspect to, ensure the gender inclusive technologies and to ensure that women should not lag behind in this domain. So according to the ITU statistics, 250 million fewer women were online than men globally. 62% of men use the internet compared with the 57% of women. So although this gender divide has been narrowing all over the world, but virtually eliminated in the developing world, especially in the landlocked developing countries, still there is a wider gender gap when it comes to using these technologies, where 38% of the men as compared to 27% women are using internet. So it is really important to close the gender gap in the digital world as well. Plus new and emerging technologies would facilitate the smart water and sanitation management as well as the e-government services. The second sector is the economy and development cluster. It includes the SDG 7, 8, 9, and 12. So these technologies are creating new jobs, enabling resilient work and commerce, and stimulates wider social and economic development, as well as the innovative entrepreneurship and foster vibrant small and medium enterprises. Secondly, the smart grid system based on AI, ICT, and new advanced materials can help to build more controllable and efficient energy systems. They also facilitate the incorporation of solar, wind, and other renewable sources into the value chain. So these days, the most talked about and the buzzword is the application of these digital technologies in the economic field, especially the digital currencies. So when we talk about the cryptocurrency globally, these currencies are using electricity as some nations' total electrical demand. And this is not only compromising the outcome in the SDG 7 on clean energy, but also on the SDG 13 on climate action. So some estimates suggest that the total electricity demand for information and communication technologies could require up to 20% of the global electricity demand by 2030 from around 1% today. So therefore, green growth of ICT, AI, and blockchain technology is therefore essential. Moving on to the last cluster of the environment. This cluster includes SDGs 11, 13, 14, 15, and 17. So AI enables smart and low carbon cities encompassing a range of interconnected technologies such as electrical, autonomous vehicles, and smart appliances. However, fossil fuel generated power is required to achieve high temperatures for mining the raw materials like silicon, cobalt for semiconductor chips used in these autonomous vehicles. So health hazards would affect the SDG 3 on health. Furthermore, research and the product design may require massive computational resources only available through large computing and data centers, which in turn would have a really high energy requirement and big cooling systems and increased carbon footprint. So basically, we are going back to the square one. E-waste created by these ICTs, blockchain, and AI is increasing all over the world. So there is a need to develop standards which promote green data centers and green power feeding systems. ICTs and big data blockchain technologies are being extensively used to monitor the changing marine environment, the movement of the ice flows and the glacier movements, remote monitoring of the changing weather conditions at sea, as well as the tracking and the monitoring of the wildlife protection. To conclude this presentation with the challenges for developing countries, I would basically highlight the 4 challenges. First one is the governance divide. New and the emerging technologies lack basic governing structures and global regulatory regimes. Then there is a value divide. Increased application and productivity is not equal to the increased prosperity. So the wealth generated by these technologies are owned by 1% of this planet. Data divide, data flow will grow by 400% by 2026, but activities focus on the few global players, largely excluding the developing world. And then there is an innovation divide. Certain social groups within states and states itself could be impacted negatively by these technological innovations, especially AI, big data, and materials. How to relate with these technological improvements enabled by AI, especially when they would be implemented in those countries which have different cultural values in the wealth. Research, development, manufacturing, product design and testing, and training require massive computational and financial resources, so which are only available to the large or developed countries. So biases in the data set of the AI might enable more nationalism, hate towards minorities, political, racial, and gender bias. So that's all from my side. So thank you so much for your patient hearing, and looking forward to the interesting question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you, Aamna. I think that was a good comparison that 62% of men and 57% women worldwide are using the internet, and 38% and 27% in Pakistan. Maybe it will be interesting to see that percentage-wise, what is the time spent? Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Dr. Syed Arif Ahmad, who will discuss prudent harnessing of technological development to support comprehensive security and options for Pakistan. Keeping in view significance of various technologies and Pakistan's limitations in the education system, research culture, industrial base, technology absorption capacity, and policy formulation and implementation, Dr. Arif would suggest possible modifications in the policy formulation and implementation process to bridge these existing gaps. How can national needs be met with indigenous development vis-a-vis joint ventures? And given the limitations, how should the development of various technologies be prioritized? Dr. Arif, sir.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Thank you very much, Air Marshal Farad Saab, Air Marshal Ashfaq Saab, and General Kidwai for an excellent talk. I'll try to meet the demands that are expected of me, but I'll be covering only a small portion of what is expected of me, primarily because of the breadth of this whole field of emerging technologies. What I feel is that these are so vast in our present technological screen that it will take quite an effort on the part of our planners. I wish this meeting had taken place 5 years ago, but nevertheless, it's never too late. What we need to look at is what is the span. Artificial intelligence, we all have some idea. We've been reading about it and in magazines and in movies, and what artificial intelligence can do and cannot do for the moment. But very importantly, just a few weeks back, Geoffrey Hinton, who's known as the godfather of artificial intelligence, he resigned from Google. And that is, in a way, a milestone in the sense that he had helped develop it. And when he reached the pinnacle of it, and when the world was about to reap the benefits of all of his developments and developments of his team and so many other teams worldwide, that they feel that he felt that he has let out a genie, helped develop this, but now this could be misused. And I'll give the example of fire. When fire was first discovered, people started feeling, well, this is good for us. I can cook my food. I can keep myself warm. But then he realized that I can use it to destroy my perceived enemy. So here too, there are so many other examples. But here too, we feel that this developer is now feeling a sense of remorse as to why did he bring all this technology technology into being? Well, it's up to us who are going to be using it to use it for the benefit of mankind as a whole and for the nation as a whole, and collectively within institutions come up with ideas as to how society can benefit from this. So I'll not be reading all of it, although maybe this technological singularity, I'm sure many of you may have come across this. Technology has developed, information technology and artificial intelligence has gone so far as to be getting out of control. It's like you put a fire, but then you have a lot of explosive devices, and everything goes on fire. And if it is spread all over the world, then we are in a very bad situation. But with this, what this suggests, the idea of technological singularity is that a point in time might come. And according to Geoffrey Hinton, or at least that is what he was afraid of, that this time might have just arrived where we could, technology could just take over. There could be robots all around, some of them not even visible to us, that things could just get out of hand. People have been talking about this, Dr. Rabia and others, about how these rapid technological advancements, they could be changing the whole character of war. And as General Kidwai rightly said, one doesn't have to be in the theater of war. A person sitting in Florida just presses a button on his screen and he doesn't even feel that he has destroyed somebody or just knocked somebody off. You could not practically knock nations off. There are national grids, electrical grids, which connect one power plant to another power plant and to the transmission system. All of these are connected by computers. Pakistan is also contemplating this, and I hope somebody from WAPDA could be here and they would not bring it to auto mode, because one could trigger things off. And as I come from a nuclear power community, putting electricity off to a nuclear power plant could just be very disastrous. That's what happened in Fukushima, and could have happened in Ukraine. So we should have all our power plants from Babda, from the Guddu station, the Mangla Dam, the Tarbela Dam, and from nuclear power plants, all of them in a way disconnected, unless it's absolutely necessary, as is the case for nuclear power, to be always connected with two independent electric power sources. But why I'm saying this is that things have gone so far. It's only a couple of years back when the United States tested its own electrical grids, and they failed when a cyber attack was conducted. And then some unknown people have tested the resilience of electrical grids in other countries. Adaptation of these technologies will ensure that we will be able to fight and win the wars of the future. Because even if you say, okay, here is my country, I don't want to deal with the others. But the others may want to deal with you. So you may not want to fight. You may want to just develop your nation. But then that may not be liked by so many of the others. So just isolationary policies, at least with emerging technologies, with artificial intelligence, no longer works. So we have to be a part of that whole system, but then be sure that we are able to protect ourselves. And that is going to be a challenge in the coming years. There's a wide variety of technologies, and I'll just focus on just a few of them because I felt that this 15 to 20 minutes allotted to me may not be able to cover all of it. So I'll just go through them. There is no formal definition or agreed upon definition of artificial intelligence. The business community comes up with one, the commerce people comes with one, World Economic Forum comes with another definition, and Lawrence Livermore labs in the US have another definition. So what the definitions, whatever little that I'm defining, would be US government Department of Defense nomenclature. So the AI is further divided into three categories: narrow AI, general AI, and artificial superintelligence. Again, there's a difference in nomenclature depending upon what text or magazine one is reading. Narrow AI systems can perform only the specific task that they were trained to perform, while general AI systems will be capable of performing a broad range of tasks, including those for which they were not specifically trained. So they can learn themselves by interacting. Then artificial superintelligence greatly exceeds the cognitive performance of humans in virtually all domains of interest. General AI systems and artificial superintelligence do not exist as yet. I mean, this is what we know from open literature and some semi-classified literature. Narrow AI is currently being incorporated into a number of military applications by the technologically advanced nations. The advantage of using AI in our civilian or military system would be that the system would react significantly faster than human operated systems. So if it's built into a vehicle or and you're about to apply brakes, an AI enabled system car would be able to sense the danger much earlier and respond much more quickly. Cope with the exponential increase in the amount of data available for analysis. And that is one of the biggest problems facing developing countries, including Pakistan. The volume of knowledge that is coming out is tremendous. Every couple of years, the knowledge doubles. So there are people who say, well, why not translate things into Urdu or Punjabi or some other language? We can't cope with the available knowledge in English. This is happening at such a fast rate. Enable new concepts of operations, such as swarming, that could confer a war-fighting advantage by overwhelming the adversary with defensive systems. So if you have small drones and you have a swarm of drones, then you can overwhelm your enemy with that swarm. But that means that you have the capability to produce those small drones, and more importantly, that you're able to coordinate their flights. If they come across with one thing in their path, then they should be able to maneuver. And in hundreds of drones in one flight, as many of you had been doing, the Air Force does it very well for 5 to 10 aircraft, but with hundreds of drones, they could strike each other. So you need to have pre-programmed strategies for their mobility, both within the country and outside. Then lethal autonomous weapons, drones as they are commonly term. There are marine drones as well, not just. Laws as a class of weapon systems are capable of both independently identifying a target. Now, facial recognition, as we know, it is able to use that technology, and provided it has a picture of that face beforehand in its computers or in its software, or is able to go to Florida and check it at almost the speed of light, and be able to say, okay, yeah, this is the person that we want to take on. This concept of autonomy is also known as human out of loop or full autonomy. And this is what is the dangerous part, the full autonomy part. It also takes, as General Kidwai pointed out, it takes away the responsibility. And some people who have been working, firing people in remote areas of Afghanistan and elsewhere, they feel repentant, because just pushing a button is okay if you are an 18-year-old or 20-year-old. But if you have been doing it for several years and you are in your mid-30s, then you start feeling, oh my God, what am I doing? I don't even know the guy. He is no threat to me. And from what I know, he is not even a threat to my nation. So many of these things become enmeshed. And then recently, in the last decade or so, nations have started admitting publicly that they have hypersonic weapons. So it can go at very high speeds and follow a trajectory that is very difficult to be handled by defensive missile systems. So they've up or increased the unlikelihood of a defensive system to be able to handle them. So all of these technologies are in some way adding to the uncertainty. And then there are hypersonic glide vehicles and hypersonic cruise missiles, which are launched from a rocket before gliding to a target, and the other one is powered and controlled till the end. Two factors hold significant implications for strategic stability, as Dr. Rabia pointed out. The weapons. Okay. This is what I was afraid of. General Kidwai has always used to point out that my letters are very long, 4 pages, 5 pages long to explain anything. I'm not good at explaining things. But this whole subject is very vast. Okay, so I'll just go through it. And directed energy weapons are using concentrated electromagnetic energy rather than kinetic energy. From the Stone Age, you throw something. They could offer low cost per shot, assuming access to a sufficient power supply. They depend on the power of the battery to be able to find. But if you have an infinite power supply, then you can have an infinite number of shots. High-powered microwave weapons, that is another beast that we have not concentrated upon as much, could be used as non-kinetic weapons of disabling electronics, communication systems, and improvised explosive devices. Some countries will field a ground-based laser weapon that can counter low-orbit space-based sensors. And by the late 2020s, they might field high-power systems that extend the threat to the structures of non-optical satellites also, electronic satellites. So they could fire a laser here or from. Then biotechnologies has been referred to earlier, so I'll not say much here. They can be used to create adaptive camouflage, cloaking devices, lighter, stronger, and potentially self-healing body and vehicle armor. Same can lead to better outer suits for firefighters. Internationally, concerns have been raised that many countries may not hold high ethical standards in the research and application of biotechnologies, particularly regarding biological weapons, genome editing, and more invasive forms of human performance modification. You could have a person who's moving normally, and suddenly that person starts behaving very abnormally. I just wish that this meeting was not broadcast live. We could sit somewhere and talk about some of the other horrifying things that could happen. Then quantum technologies are again very complex things. They have they can lead to secure communications, hotlines. And General Kidwai is sitting in his office and he wants to talk to his commander to ready the weapons. Then nobody should be able to overhear. Snooping wise also. These are now small devices. Just one device fits in a shoebox in his office and another with the ASFC commander, and they could talk securely. So with these data leaks coming in here, that won't be coming out. So even the US may not be able to do it because it requires a tremendous amount of computational powers. Eventually they'll be able to break the code, but that code breaking may take 10 years or 5 years. Then there are applications of artificial intelligence in nuclear energy, and hopefully I'll give a talk sometime later on these issues. And then laws on laws. The international community is talking about it because they want to constrain us developing countries from breaking out of the fold. Quantum technologies, they are the most difficult physics and mathematics. If you're going to be having people to be involved in this, very high level of mathematics, most difficult physics. Experimentation is sophisticated, they are very expensive, and the time domain is, say, about 50 years. Lethal autonomous weapons, well, we already have some that we have bought, but if we want to have our systems, which would be state of the art, maybe about 10 years in the making. Hypersonic weapons, missiles and glide weapons, 10 to 15 years. Directed energy weapons, well, it requires difficult physics. Mechanical, electronics, lasers, high-powered lasers. Very, very large batteries are needed. Again, 10 to 15 years time scale. Biotechnologies, I'll just miss. Then there is this additive manufacture or 3D printing part. Now this is, it'll take a lot of time for a country like Pakistan to be able to have 3D machines that can print a runway any place that you want. That's being done, and the US has those, and other countries also have that capability. But that would require very large 3D printing machines. We have some, and I understand that some of them are being used here also, which cost only about 10 to 15,000 rupees. Okay, fine. But then the thing is, how precise do we want it? What are the metrics of it? Then there are regulatory matters that we need to look at. This is going to be another difficult job for Khalid Banuri type people and Dr. Rabia type people because there is not as much of a talk about these technologies. So if we understand and comprehend these technologies, then perhaps we can more easily frame something. Otherwise, what happened when our Prime Minister signed the Biological Weapons Convention and the Chemical Weapons Convention, there was perhaps nobody available to advise them. The loop of people did not include the relevant technically qualified people. Okay, now my last slide or so, second last. This AI business and emerging technologies require tremendous computational power. And Chat GPT is talking of 10 to the 25 operations per second. And we could be at the stable diffusion level if we wish to. And if there is one equipment that we need to buy, is a supercomputer. To have all of these AI things and emerging technologies tested, at least theoretically, computationally tested. If you want to have our drones moving in some synchronous manner, we need to have all those patterns tested beforehand. In fact, having already computed all the possible or a large number of possible scenarios, they can be done on a supercomputer. And what I see is that in the list of top 500 computers, Pakistan is nowhere. Saudi Arabia has 7, 3 of them with the Aramco and 4 with their universities. And they've had it for many years because there is this common perception that the Saudis have too much money from oil and therefore have a good time. But they're spending money here also. India has 3. It's time that we go for it. We've been spending a lot of money. I'm not against motorways, but we've been spending a lot of money on that. But it's high time that we start investing in this. You can even buy second-hand supercomputers from all over the world. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Arif, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, just to keep our discourse more interesting, we have a discussant, Commodore Khalid Banuri. And before inviting him, I would just mention that this was a truly whole of the nation approach, where we have General Kidwai traveling from Karachi, Dr. Rabia from Lahore, and Air Commodore Banuri from Kohat. And the Balochistan think tank network is actually participating online. Air Commodore Khalid, sir.
Thank you very much, Cass, for this opportunity, as indeed for choosing the subject, which is extremely important, and there's a need to go a lot more detail, as is evident from this presentation and several of these presentations. I have had the honor to be on this stellar panel, some young in age, some in spirit. But all giving us very, very relevant information. There are several themes which are recurring. I'll leave that, but I will cherry pick some takeaways from perhaps each of the presentation that I heard, and then go to making some general points. We heard this illustrious keynote, and there are several ideas that one can go into more detail. I would just take the liberty to pick 2 points. One, of course, is the issue of the future reliability of the new technologies that are being evolved. And I will relate it with this idea of the intense desire to put them into employment, perhaps because they have really matured. So there's a danger out there. And the other point that I want to pick is on social cohesion, which is very easier said than done in acquiring it. So you will never have a kind of a perfect social cohesion situation. We need to learn we need to learn to live with this kind of diversity. So these 2 takeaways I take for myself from the keynote. The obvious one, of course, was do it now before it's too late. And I think this is a very, very telling point. I was quite struck by Dr. Rabia's reference to the issue of uncertainty, which I think is one word which kind of encompasses the whole idea. She also said, as a passing reference, that Pakistan can take the lead in ideas of regulations. Happy to note that we are doing it that way at Geneva. There is an initiative on laws that Pakistan is leading, and I'm not sure if Ambassador Zamir Akram is still around, but he initiated this, and it is currently being led by Pakistan, the initiative to bring out ideas of regulation about the lethal autonomous weapons. So some of those ideas are important. And you know, on these ideas of awareness and education, I think what exists and what is openly or publicly known, there is a gap, and that needs to be identified. You said that too. On Aamna's presentation, I won't go in a lot of detail, but I will make just 2 very quick points. One is about when I want to look at non-traditional usage of such new technologies, I want to see what will be for the good of the people. So food security, and you referred to it on the SDGs, is an important area, and food security, but it needs to be translated into something more practical. And I think it's possible, although there are hurdles around that. The data divide is a recurring theme, and I will continue to refer to it. There are other areas that come around. Dr. Arif took us around a lot of very wide canvas. 2 things. One, the big data issue, and I look at big data as the three A's in my view: the access, the analysis, and the application. We have problem in all of these areas. We do not regularly put the data together. So there are bits and pieces, there are various pockets, then putting it together also means providing access to it. How do we do that? We are traditionally not doing that. The analysis itself is a full subject by itself, and that needs to go. And then eventually, once you have done both of those areas, then going into the application side. On the technical singularity, the machines dictating the humans, I think we tell the computers how humans think with all our human follies. And then we are now looking at artificial intelligence and wanting them to do it for us. With all our human follies, they will, the algorithms will give us decisions. And now we are reluctant. In some sensitive areas, we don't want to do that. This is an area that we have to think more about and deal with. And I'm really tempted to ask Dr. Arif, how much does a 10 or 20 kilometer motorway cost? But I'm not going to do that. I think I'll leave it for the audience. I want to just make some very, very quick points. I know that CAS takes pride in doing things in time, and I would Be happy if I'm given a signal right from there, if I have a minute and a half left. So two or three thoughts that I thought are relevant to mention. We tend to agree that these are challenging times. And we also tend to agree that the new things are happening. But, you know, I just recently came across this old scenario which said, imagine if you were born in the year 1900. When you were 14, you came across World War I. 6 million died. A year later, you came across Spanish flu. When you were 45, you came across World War II. 22 million died. And so happening life, and when you're 75, you look back and say, all problems came to me. But if you compare it with yourself, maybe start from 1990 and say, end of Cold War, and what did happen in Afghanistan, and so on and so forth, and take it forward. And then you say, why are these new things happening to me? The new things have always happened. At that time, it was different. The Spanish flu killed several people. Now, when you had this COVID, it actually killed lesser because there's so much of travel. You tried to control it, you didn't control it 100%, and then that it went. The reason I'm pointing at these scenarios is it's complicated and it's going to get much more complicated. So, are we ready? And even if we are not ready, and even if we have apprehensions, we got to do this and we got to go in there, which means things will go wrong. We need to continuously grapple with them and go on handling them. The various areas one can think of, legal is one area, but of course the development by itself is not doing anything about getting into artificial intelligence is not an option. And some of you might know, I just pulled out a draft. Pakistan has taken the plunge to make a draft policy on artificial intelligence. I think it's a good idea to put it out as a draft, because I just vertically scanned a few pages and I have tons of problems with some of those ideas. But here's a thought. Some people got together, wrote down a document and put it out to you, brave people. So we can now go and butcher that document, but make it better. So at least putting out a draft is one area. They are looking at market enablement, progressive and trusted environment, enabling through awareness and readiness and transformation and evolution. 4 areas. Understandable. That's useful. We can do several of those things. What are the issues that come out? And so, 2 things that I think I want to mention on how to look at this issue. One is that the defense sector traditionally invested in new technologies because of its own needs. The IC was, and I've said it earlier on other places, ICs were developed for the F-13 program for the USAF. The cell phone came because the US Army wanted to get away from those corded telephones in the field, in the battlefield. The GPS or the navigational systems were the needs of the Navy. They invested in them. They invested in them despite the fact that there were going to be some civilian uses eventually. So we need to understand and take another look at how to deal with dual use technologies. Instead of thinking that we're going to put 100% strategic export controls on everything, that any new technology that comes in. What does happen is some states get there and some cannot. In artificial intelligence, it's different because smaller states also can get access or develop new technologies, because in everything you do not need a heavy industrial base. So that's the area to think about. Data is one area that I mentioned we need to deal with, but the whole of the nation approach. I want to just mention the legal side of this. The traditional laws of war say a uniformed soldier is a legitimate target. What about that drone operator who has never even worn a regular shoe? It doesn't really matter, but that's, so there are new questions that are coming up on the dual use. The issue of ethics and how to deal with completely autonomous weapons is another area to think about. All of these areas tend to say it's going to get more complicated. So are we going to just look at what we shouldn't do, like ChatGPT, plagiarism, and so on and so forth, or look at the potential and tap it? So 3 or 4 points I want to mention. The challenges, synergy of various things that you're doing, whole of the nature approach in the sense of not only of everyone has to understand, they don't have to agree, but they have to understand what we're doing. Funding, public, private, easier said than done, but will have to be done. Balancing the dual use, I've already mentioned. You think of the cooperation that exists. United States and India are already in several of those areas, very sensitive area. The glide path started with space and technologies several years ago, and it has developed in several others, including nuclear. Pakistan, China has some cooperation. Can it go into very extensive emerging technologies? Cooperation is a challenge that we have. Privacy will be affected forever. Deal with it, learn and to deal with it. And on the issue of regulation, there will be more lip service to it till the time states that desire and have the will and resources get there. So get into the race. If it's there's no morality in international relations, that's what one has to say. And finally, my biggest point on this is what we need to deal with as individuals and as a society. The speed of decision making is going to be so tremendous that human mind alone cannot do that. The algorithm has to help you. You need to find the right technology and the fine blend of that. Thank you very much.
Session. Now I would like to invite Air Marshal Farid Hussain Khan, President KES, for delivering his closing remarks. Sir, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Long session. What I wanted to cover up, Banuri has already covered up those points, so I leave that here. Just a few, 2-3 things that have been coming up repeatedly in various seminars. I'll touch upon that. One is the investment by the private sector. We had 2 seminars here in the forum. One was about the defense production and the opportunities for private sector. Our friend Tanveer was one of the panelists. And second was the last seminar that we had on Pak. Saudi Arabia, Iran reapproachment. Both seminars, although the subjects are totally different, had a common point. They do not have an environment for investment. Environment means that the person or the agency or the organization who's coming to invest has to be treated as a king. He's coming with money. You've got to give him the environment to invest. Last seminar, Senator Moshahid Hussain said that Saudi Arabia wanted to invest in Gwadar, in CPAC. They've been waiting for allocation of the land for the last 3 years. If that suffices, many questions that were coming for the private sector. Private sector has not grown. One serious hit that private sector got was in 1972. We nationalized all the industry. And our manufacturing hasn't grown after that. Because, yes, somebody here was pointing out what we have today in terms of technologies has been pushed because of the keenness or the requirement of the military sector. Yes, that's a fact. The private sector is waiting to be moved forward and provided an umbrella from the public sector, which is not coming so far. And I hope someday we do it as quickly as possible. The second was the impact of AI on most of us who belong to the military background, impact of AI on the future of warfare. Artificial intelligence has really condensed the timings. Those of us who've been talking about the famous OODA loop that we have been talking, you know, the artificial intelligence has shrunk the timing so much that you are talking of decisions through robots, but the military decision is taken by people. Whether it is tactical level, or operational level, or strategic level, their decisions are taken by people. So people have to absorb that. Those who can, the time is reduced to the level that you do not have option of delaying their decisions. If the enemy can exploit the same decision making and inject false information into your loop, you will be away from the decision. So faster, the decision making is going to be very quick, and those who lag behind will lose the war or the tactical environment that we have. Therefore, AI and cyber will play a very important role in the future shape of the warfare. In my view, the application of technologies, particularly the AI, cyber, also called sometimes the non-kinetic warfare tools, are going to change the concepts, doctrines, and nature of war at all three levels. And we could not agree more what General Kidwai said, and I think Ali also pointed out from that the political stability, without this, we're not moving anywhere. And when we come to the comprehensive national security, we got to keep in mind nothing is safer and secure if the people are not safer and secure, if they do not feel part of the system as integrated as anybody else is. So security has to keep the people in mind as the baseline of security, so that they can be as effective, as supportive as they were 50, 40 years back. So I think Dr. Rabia, when she said the disruptive impact of technologies, yes, it is going to be disruptive. I think Dr. Nabil rightly said that we are not at ground zero, so that's the silver lining, but we are behind. Surely we are behind in many fields, and we need to catch up, and we will only catch up if we have an economy and a stable political environment. That's the starting point that we have. Thank you very much, sir, for all the interest that you took, everybody. And I'm grateful to all the guests, those who came here and spent time, almost 3 hours with us. And my conclusion generally is anything beyond 2.5 hours in the seminar gets a little tough for the audience. So therefore, we finish it at this end. And my thanks to all of you. And General Kidwai, who's been, Dr. Rabia, you said you need to integrate the regional factor into the seminar. We had a seminar in G-Star 2022 in October, where the impact of this, we had speakers from across. And then we look forward to more of it. Directorate of, we have a very vibrant directorate of emerging technologies at CAS, and we continue to work on it. We work closely with you and so. Thank you very much for coming, and my special thank to you for sparing time. She was supposed to be online, but she made sure that she comes to CAS. She has another relationship with CAS. She is daughter of P.F. Watton. So that's the relationship that we have with her. Dr. Arif, thank you very much for a very, very, I wish we had more time for you. but we did not have that much time for you. And Ashfaq, CAS team for organizing this. Banuri, great to have you here. And thank you very much for all of you. And once again, we look forward to you. The next seminar that we have is on Indus water challenges that Pakistan is facing on 22nd. Hopefully those who want to come, please register on the same phone number and we'll send you the invitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I would request you to please present the mementos to the distinguished panelists. Dr. Rabia, I request you to please receive your memento, please. Ms. Aamna Rafiq, please receive your memento. Dr. Syed Arif Ahmad, sir, please receive your memento. Air Commodore Banuri, sir. All the panelists and president, please assemble for a group photograph. Ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of this seminar. I thank you all for joining us today. For